Hey there, scientists. Today, we are talking about a science career. And the science career we are talking about today is a conservationist. Your goal is that you can describe how a conservationist studies the natural world and works with other people to save natural resources. Have any of you ever worked on a project to help save wild plants or animals in an area? What was that project? What did you do to help? And importantly, did you work alone or did you work with other people? There is a good chance that in your community, maybe with a group or a family member, an environmental association, maybe with some group, you have actually done some conservation work, maybe in your school or your classroom. And there's a good chance that you did that with other people, whether, again, it was your family or if it was your classroom. You probably have done something to try to help to create a positive impact on plants or animals around you. Well, if you've done this, you have actually done the work of a conservationist because you're working to help protect the environment. So we know this lesson is going to be about what is the job of a conservationist. Well, what do you think a conservationist does? A conservationist is someone who helps to save the wild places, the wild plants, the wild animals that live in an area. So when we look at this lesson right here, I know many of you are looking at the map and you're wondering, where does this conservationist do their work? Well, we're looking at the southwestern United States, in specifically that Colorado River Delta. So where the Colorado River exits the land and flows into the sea. You, I'm sure, are remembering back to your fourth grade social studies where you studied this previously last year and have a lot of background knowledge that you can build from in order to better understand what we're discussing today. As we move forward, we are going to jump into our reading, and your focus is going to be, can you describe the work of a conservationist? The Colorado River is the largest river in the Southwest. It flows through many states before reaching its mouth, or delta, in Mexico. Along the way, people use its water for farms, lawns, cities, and factories. Over the last 100 years, people have been taking more and more water from the river. Now, people take so much water that by the time the Colorado reaches the sea, it is only a trickle. There isn't enough water left for the wildlife that live in the delta. Dr. Osvel Hinojosa is a conservationist who is working with many other people to restore the river's flow. He is working to restore the wildlife of the delta. For example, he has helped replace invasive salt cedar trees with native trees such as willows, cottonwood, and mesquite. So scientists, remember, to conserve means to use something carefully so it's not wasted. Conservation is the careful use or protection of natural resources, such as rivers or forests. So, what is Dr. Osvel Hinojosa's career? He's a conservationist. And as a conservationist, what does he do? Well, he's working to restore the wildlife of the Colorado River Delta. That is what he is doing. So here we have a question and answer session with National Geographic Life Science and Dr. Hinojosa. Why are the wetlands of the Delta important? And his response is, wetlands have a very important function in the world. Many species of plants and animals live in wetlands. Wetlands also help make the water clearer and provide protection against floods, storms, and hurricanes. What is the problem you are working to resolve? The main challenge we have is nature does not equally divide water resources. We have failed to recognize that all things in nature need water. The water needs to be available for more than just our agricultural industry. We also need to make sure that there is enough water flowing in the rivers to connect the rivers to the seas. Is it hard work with all the different groups involved in restoring the river? It takes time, but once you find common ground and make it clear that everyone is working toward a common goal, which is to improve conditions for everyone, then it's easier to make progress. How can students help save rivers and wetlands? Learn about your watershed, where the water is produced, where the system goes, what are the important environmental values of your watershed, and what are the conservation concerns of the watershed. Go out and get engaged with the groups that are out there doing great work. You can make a difference. So here we see that there's volunteers that are planting cottonwoods and willows in a restoration site in the Colorado River Delta. And here, these ring-billed gulls are stopping over in the largest remaining wetland in the Colorado River Delta. The area is a critical wintering and stopover site for birds that migrate along the Pacific Flyway. So why is Dr. Hinojosa doing all of this work? Well, all of this work is being done as a conservationist to help to restore the wildlife in the Delta, to make sure that we are taking care of the plants and the animals that live and thrive in the Delta so that it can create clean water for everyone. What's the relationship between these human activities and the wildlife in the Colorado Delta? Well, we heard here that most of the water is taken out for farms, lawns, cities, and factories. And over the last 100 years, people have been taking out more and more water from the river. Now people take out so much water, there's very little that reaches the sea. So humans in time have had a great impact on the Delta. There's almost no water left for the wildlife. Oswell and his team of scientists use many different tools to study the Colorado River. They use maps and satellite images to learn different people are using different amounts of water. As the Colorado River flows into the sea, many streams and smaller rivers flow into it. All the land that is drained by the river make up its watershed. So we have the Colorado River that runs here, and we have all these different like dams and streams and different tributaries that flow into the Colorado River that help to create this Colorado River watershed, all of the area in which the water flows into the Sea of Cortez. The Colorado River flows from the state of Colorado to the Sea of Cortez. On the way, the river passes through a number of states and Mexico. So we can look here and you could identify the number of states that the Colorado River flows through or between. And how many countries does the river flow between? Do Oswell and his team of scientists work alone? No. There are other groups involved, including businesses, the farmers, governments, other environmental organizations. And why would so many people be involved in this? Well, because it has such a great impact on so many people and so much land and so many different environmental resources. So as a conservationist, he is working diligently to make certain everyone understands they have the same goals. When he was asked, is it hard to work with all the different groups involved in restoring the water? It takes time, but once you find common ground and make it clear that everyone is working toward a common goal, which is to improve conditions for everyone, then it's easy to make progress. So as a conservationist, Ausvel is really working hard to make certain that everyone is being taken care of. And that includes making sure that we are acting as a conservationist, planting the right trees, keeping the watershed protected, and keeping all of those animals happy and healthy so the watershed and the water can stay protected as well. Moving forward, you are going to be asked to define what a conservationist is. You're also going to be asked to start thinking about these two questions. The first is a cause and effect. How will restoring water to the Colorado River Delta affect the health of the ecosystem? So think about it. If there is more and cleaner water, how will that change what is happening inside of that ecosystem? You will have to connect this with all of the previous things we talked about with food webs, food chains, photosynthesis, the oxygen cycle, the carbon cycle. You'll have to think about how all of those could be part of this cause and effect question. And then your last question is you need to make a judgment. Are the wetlands of the Colorado River Delta important to humans? And explain your thinking there. We know we've talked a lot about how they are important to animals, but how are they and how could they be, or how are they not important to humans, the Colorado River Delta? Because remember, your goal at the end here, team, is you can describe how a conservationist studies the natural world and works with other people to save natural resources. Good luck, scientists.